Start by visiting iNaturalist.org and click Observations from the top menu. When you first visit the Observations page, all observations of all species from around the world are displayed. The count summarizes the total number. The individual observations appear as gray markers and as a list with the most recently posted observations listed first. At the top of the page are filters that we will use to narrow down this set of observations in a few moments. But first, let's explain how the rest of the Observations page is structured. The page summarizes observations matching your filters as 4 separate counts: the count of the observations themselves, the count of the species that these observations represent, the count of the people who identified the observations, and the count of the people who made the observations. Each of these counts activates a tab which provides more information about what's driving them. Let's start with the Observations tab, which is active by default. These raw observations can be viewed as a map, as a grid of photos, or as a list. As you zoom and pan around the map in the Observations tab, you will see dense concentrations of observations in places where the iNaturalist community is most active. If you zoom in far enough, the gray markers will be replaced with markers with different colors and shapes, reflecting the taxonomic category, quality, and geoprivacy of the observation described in the map legend. You'll also notice the places of interest and Redo Search in Map buttons, which can be used to add location filters. We'll describe how these work when we explain filters shortly. Activating the Species tab summarizes the observations matching your filters as the distinct set of species that they represent. The most frequently observed species are displayed first. Worldwide, house sparrow is the most frequently observed species on iNaturalist. You can click through to learn more about them. The Identifiers tab summarizes the observations matching your filters by the people who've helped identify them. These identifiers are ranked by the number of identifications they've added. So far, Kevin Hintze and Greg Lasley have each added around 100,000 identifications for the iNaturalist community. Similarly, the Observers tab summarizes observations by the people who observed them. Observers are ranked by both the number of observations and the number of species they represent. Fanatic has observed over 37,000 observations representing nearly 5,000 distinct species. You can click on people to learn more about them, message them, or follow them. Connecting with top identifiers and observers is a great way to learn more about observations that interest you. Now let's talk about filters. The 2 main ways to filter observations are by species and by location. To add a species filter, just type in and select the name you want. This will filter the observations accordingly, and the counts will update to reflect this restricted set of observations. Worldwide, over 11,000 distinct species of butterflies and moths have been observed, and painted lady is the most frequently observed species. To add a location filter, start typing a street address and select one of the return choices. Notice that the world has been replaced by bounding box, and an orange bounding box is displayed around the street address. You can also generate a bounding box manually from the position of the map by clicking the Redo Search in Map button mentioned earlier. Try clicking the Find My Current Location button to position the map on your current location, and then click Redo Search in Map to see if there are any observations of butterflies and moths near you. Now, try entering California into the location filter. This will filter not by a square bounding box, but rather by the state of California. This is because the location matched an iNaturalist place. You can also use the Places of Interest button mentioned earlier to view and select nearby places. These places are separated into a standard set, maintained by iNaturalist, and a community-curated set, added by the iNaturalist community. In the Other Filters menu, there are many more filters to choose from. For example, you can search by date, or filter only research grade or threatened observations. When you choose one of these filters, a badge will display on the Filters menu to remind you that you've applied a filter. Note that iNaturalist filters only verifiable observations by default. This excludes observations of pets and others that aren't candidates to become research grade. Uncheck this if you want to include these casual observations. There's also a handy button here to reset all filters and a tool to download observations in a variety of formats. Thanks for watching. We hope exploring these observations will inspire you to get outside and share your own observations. We're looking forward to seeing what you find.